I'm Shannon Martin. Tonight, another round of protests at the nation's capital. It's day 2 of the Rolling Thunder rally in Ottawa, met with a heavy police presence and counter-protests. Plus, unanswered questions after the deaths of 4 Royal Military College cadets in Kingston, and
very happy, to be here because, it's a very famous team in Canada.
A local high school soccer team scores big at today's TFC game.
This is CBC Saturday News.
You are looking live tonight at the nation's capital, where people continue to gather at this hour. It is day 2 of planned protest in Ottawa in what's being called the Rolling Thunder Rally. Well, it is a familiar-looking scene in Ottawa. Big crowds, heavy police presence, but this time officers said they're not taking any chances. Ashley Burke spent the day at the rally. She has our top story.
The city of Ottawa has seen and heard this before.
And we're going to take back this monument.
But this time, police say they won't let demonstrators dig in for the long haul.
We heard loud and clear from our community that they were tired from the protesting that had occurred and that they didn't want to see a repeat of the occupation.
Motorcycles were authorized to do a lap on a controlled route, but not roll past Parliament Hill or right up to the site of the rally.
This is as close as motorcycles got to the National War Memorial, blocks away, because police are trying to keep them from stopping and parking their vehicles downtown like they have in the past.
Protesters were also barred from bringing their own vehicles downtown. But even with restrictions, it all looked too familiar for some residents who pushed back.
We just have to let them know that they're not welcome.
You guys make us look bad, but you see what's really going on, right?
Protesters and counter-protesters both demanding each other leave. Police quickly intervened.
Stand on the other side of the street.
I came because I'm a concerned Canadian citizen. I'm very proud of the real war veterans who fought for our Canadian democracy, including my father. That memorial represents those who fought for our good governance, rule of law.
Oh, Canada. A group of veterans billed this protest as a way to continue fighting for their freedom. One organizer said he should have never been arrested in February because he used to serve in the military.
My hands were zip-tied behind my back and I was treated like a criminal.
Then used this moment to try and recruit to his cause.
We need members. We need them now.
Others tried to sell merchandise to fund the movement.
Mr. Trudeau does not actually own Canada.
On-site Conservative MP Martin Shields from Alberta declined to be interviewed.
Any chance we can ask you a couple of questions about...
Not a hope in hell. Not a hope in hell.
Some demonstrators have promised not to overstay their welcome, but police say they aren't taking any chances. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, in Toronto, police had been expecting a busy weekend with more than a dozen protests. Yesterday, the chief even warning of traffic delays, saying officers wanted to ensure public safety and freedom of expression. But he also made it clear police would not tolerate any hate speech. One of the events was a weekly anti-mandate rally at Queen's Park, and there was also a large police presence at a pro-Palestine rally outside the U.S. consulate. Hundreds gathered for prayer and speeches. Yesterday, some anti-Semitism groups spoke out about it taking place. So far, police have not reported any incidents. In other news tonight, there are just still so many questions after 4 young men died. They were cadets with the Royal Military College. Early Friday morning, their vehicle somehow went into the water near campus at CFB Kingston. Lorenda Redekop is there. She has more from the community in mourning.
4 young men just days away from graduating, all with Bachelors of Arts degrees from the Royal Military College. 3 plan to become Army officers. 1 joined the Air Force. The former high school teacher for one of the men remembers Andre Honchu as hardworking and a strong student.
He always had a smile on his face, made everyone laugh, and he had a great personality.
Support is being offered to students and staff from this close-knit community. The entire college has just 1,200 students. The 4 men were 4 of 280 set to graduate this year. And it also feels too close for some students at another university here, Queen's.
On their way out of university, have that journey cut short is really disappointing.
It happened early Friday morning at around 2 a.m. The men had been in a vehicle. A witness saw first responders near the water's edge attempt resuscitation at around 2:30 that morning. The vehicle was pulled from the water in the afternoon. The military is investigating, assisted by Kingston Police. Today, offering no updates.
Whenever something like this happens that attracts national attention, there's a great deal of scrutiny that comes along with that and a degree of closing ranks.
This military lawyer says 2 investigations will be happening. First by military police, which will determine if there's any blameworthy conduct.
The only way you're going to find out about details about a military police investigation is, in fact, if charges are laid. They don't have a tendency to broadcast the details of the investigation. The extent to which the military police are effective at conducting those investigations, well, quite frankly, in my experience, it can be hit or miss.
He expects that initial investigation could take weeks, while a more in-depth investigation called a board of inquiry will likely take months, meaning the full answers as to what happened are probably still a long ways off for families. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Kingston.
A COVID vaccine for young children may be on the way soon. Moderna says it's working on a submission to Health Canada to approve a shot for children under the age of 5. So far, Health Canada has only approved vaccines for children over 5. The company has already submitted data about use of the vaccine in babies, toddlers, and preschoolers in the U.S. Well, for more on this story, CBC News spoke with Dr. Anna Banerjee. She is a pediatric infectious disease specialist based in Toronto.
It's the last population that's really hasn't had access to the vaccine, and we expect COVID to resurge again, most likely, in the fall. Children that are at risk are in daycare where they're with other unvaccinated kids that aren't wearing masks. So they may get sick, and it might be mild illness, but it could be more serious. And children are a vector to transmit COVID back to their homes.
The highest spiritual official in the Anglican Church is coming to Southern Ontario next week. The Archbishop of Canterbury arrived in the Prairies earlier today.
To honour your pain and your grief, and hopefully to move not to knowledge, for that will be impossible, such are the number of stories, but to move from unconscious ignorance to being deeply aware of my ignorance, to conscious ignorance, and hence humility.
The church calls this visit an opportunity to repent and atone for its harms done in its relationship with Indigenous communities. Reverend Justin Welby spoke to a small group of community members, including several residential school survivors. He's expected in Toronto on Monday. The Ontario election hasn't officially been called yet, but 2 party leaders were campaigning today in Hamilton. NDP leader Andrea Horwath kicked off the 2022 election campaign at her nomination meeting.
Not only do we have to beat Doug Ford on June the 2nd, we have to form an NDP government on June the 2nd.
Horwath has represented Hamilton Centre since 2004. She became leader of the Ontario NDP in 2009 and leader of the opposition in 2018. Horwath will lead her party into the upcoming election with the most seats for the Ontario New Democrats since the party won a majority under Bob Rae in 1990. The NDP released its platform on Monday. If elected, Horwath is promising mental health care programs and to raise the minimum wage. Meanwhile, in Etobicoke, a crowd gathered for Premier Doug Ford. He unveiled his campaign bus today, dubbed the Yes Express. Ford briefly took questions from reporters. He was asked about the budget his government tabled on Thursday, which lays out nearly $200 billion in spending. The budget isn't expected to pass before the election, which officially kicks off May 4th. However, Ford promised to resubmit the same budget if the PCs are re-elected. Well, families and thrill seekers celebrating today with the reopening of Canada's Wonderland in Vaughan.
Besides looking forward to getting back on their favorite roller coasters and screaming their heads off, there's a lot of events taking place. We have live entertainment, live shows happening daily here at the park. But more than that, I think after the past 2 years, families are really looking forward to just making some memories again.
Yes, the country's largest theme park was closed completely in 2020 and had a late start last year. Today was the park's official reopening of the season. This year, guests will see a return of special events and summer festivals. That includes fireworks on the weekends, Kids Fest, to name a few. With restrictions lifted, both guests and park staff are no longer required to wear masks. I guess it makes it easier to scream your head off on a roller coaster if you don't have to wear a mask, right?
Yeah, I guess that is making it a little easier. Have you been able to start any spring activities?
A little bit, mostly cleaning the yard, which is not fun, but you know.
Oh, the spring cleaning, you gotta do it. I was able to go golfing the other day. It was quite nice. Yeah, so finally we're starting to see some spring-like conditions, and today was nice as well. Current conditions, 10 degrees in the Toronto Islands, full sunshine for your Saturday evening. If we take a look at we're saying goodbye to April. Tomorrow's May 1st. We saw 8.6 centimeters of snow at Pearson International, just a little trip down memory lane, and no snow in the near future. That's the good news, but we do have spring-like conditions because we have a little bit of rain. And I know we have some events in Toronto, the Toronto Marathon, Mississauga Marathon, and a Blue Jays game on Sunday, so that could make it a little bit soggy in certain instances. I'll get through the timing in a minute, but first your temperatures, 10 degrees in Toronto, Windsor 22, London 15, and let's say you're opening the cottage, this could be a good weekend to start doing that. 16 degrees in Gravenhurst, Parry Sound 15 degrees, and Sauble Beach, some rain there, 12 degrees. So let's look at the timing on this rain. Now luckily the marathons start fairly early in the morning, so you could dodge the rain, and then by the afternoon, that's when the rain starts to creep in through Toronto, Barrie, London, even through the evening as well. Some parts lingering for your Monday as well in the Ottawa and Kingston area, but not a washout. So it's still a good time to enjoy those springtime activities. And we'll talk more in your long-range forecast. Are we going to get to 20 degrees in Toronto?
Ooh, I hope so. Thanks, Victoria.
We'll see you soon.
A big honor tonight for some Toronto high school soccer players. The boys team at Greenwood Secondary School were crowned TDSB city champions. Well, that caught the attention of the TFC president, as Dahlia Ashley shows us. That all led to a very special moment at this afternoon's match.
From winning gold last week at the city championship to even bigger wins this weekend.
I feel excited and nervous.
Yeah, I'm very happy, to be here because, it's a very famous team in Canada.
It's a special day for Greenwood Wolves. Team captain Nathaniel Amro, his teammates Felipe Suarez, and the rest of the players.
We will have the starting lineups for you from
Before Toronto FC went head-to-head with FC Cincinnati at the BMO Field this afternoon, the team carried high and proud the TFC flag as thousands of people looked on. A memorable moment for this 18-year-old.
Yeah, when I was 13, I tried to cross the border and they caught me and I was in jail for 5 months.
Nathaniel was trying to get into Ethiopia from Eritrea. Like many others who try to flee the area, they fall into the hands of security forces and end up in prison with hundreds of other children. He's been in Canada for over a year and a half, and he's not the only newcomer on his team. Greenwood Secondary School is designed specifically for newcomer students, including refugees, as they settle into Canada. The school's soccer team is a World Cup of its own. 16 players from 11 different countries.
We all speak different languages, so we have to push the English and we need to learn more English too. So that's the hardest thing. Communication is the hardest thing.
Just a lot of demonstration. Use the blackboard a lot and kind of moving pieces around on a whiteboard, and that's kind of how we do it.
But one language they all speak fluently: soccer.
Making connections with other students from other countries, it alleviates a lot of that stress. Forming bonds with each other, feeling a connection with their school, their city, and their new country. You know, I think it's a great way to relieve that stress and just to make those first experiences in Canada to be positive ones.
Felipe Soares came to Canada from Brazil 2 years ago, now with big Canadian dreams.
We have some big players from Brazil. We have Ronaldinho and all these great players.
Yeah, Neymar.
And Neymar, there you go. Anyone here that do you hope to play here one day?
Yeah, I hope to play here. You know, my dream, is to be a soccer player, and hopefully one day I can play here in TFC, you know.
Dahlia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. After 2 years of pandemic closures, many queer venues in Toronto's West End were forced to shut down. One that managed to stay afloat is celebrating a major milestone. Philip de Monti has more.
El Convento Rico, in the heart of Toronto's Little Italy, is celebrating 30 years in business, with its founder still at the helm.
Of course, 30 years ago, it was a taboo to be gay, and El Convento Rico was a place to give them a home.
When her nightclub first opened in April 1992, it was often the target of homophobia.
They would throw tomatoes, throw eggs to El Convento. It was very hard, but I believed in what I was doing. We had a lot of gay bashing.
Being a gay club in this area, it was not accepted, especially Italians and Portuguese being really religious. They didn't understand why this kind of club have to be in this area.
Paul Mena won the club's very first Miss El Convento Rico pageant back in the early 90s. And still performs there as Nicole Batista, his drag alter ego. Known for its Latin music and drag shows, El Convento Rico managed to survive crippling lockdowns that forced many other queer venues to shut down for good.
Coming out of the pandemic and starting to come out again, there's definitely a feeling of where do we go? What's left?
COVID still took its toll and required sacrifices to stay afloat.
I had to get rid of a couple of properties to be able to sustain being open.
She also got a restaurant license to adapt her offering to the ever-changing public health measures. This regular says the drag bar helped him explore his queer identity.
Especially, I think, for anyone who's immigrating from a Latin culture who maybe didn't have a queer space growing up, El Rico's provides such a good space to meet people.
I consider this my gym,
Jason Pensier transforms into Jezebel Bardot every weekend as the club's house queen. He's happy to be back on stage, drawing crowds of all ages and walks of life.
This is probably the most diverse place I've ever worked. You have straight people come here, gay people come here, trans people come here, the Sikh community comes here, people of color. It doesn't matter. Everybody is represented here and everybody feels safe.
And El Convento Rico is now even expanding with a new restaurant opening in a few weeks. Que Rico will feature brunch, tapas, and a new stage for queer artists. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
It is almost time to see Sakura, the Japanese cherry blossoms. The man you're about to meet started his blog, Sakura in High Park, 10 years ago. Now thousands of people rely on his expertise and predictions. We recently met at High Park.
I mean, in the beginning, it was more like a passion project, more for myself, just to try to figure out what the cycles were. One year just stumbled upon the cherry blossoms in the park, and following years I could never seem to figure out when they would bloom again. And the more research I did online, I really couldn't find too many resources, at least in Toronto, for that. So that I thought, using my skills as a designer and a photographer, that I could then combine those two and then try to create a blog that will hopefully help other people in the city who want to come out and actually enjoy the blossom as much as I do.
Yeah, so you start this blog, you're taking photos and you're kind of learning as you go. And now it's grown to be just such a big thing.
Yes, it has. It's amazing.
It is amazing. What surprised you when you started this blog and over the years?
I think some of the surprising, one of the most surprising things was, first, is I didn't even realize there was such a cultural connection between Japan and Canada. And I thought that was such a wonderful thing to try to learn more about and even try to educate more. That's one of the other goals through the blog, is to help people to learn more about the Japanese culture and the connection with us, the trees, and then also to get people to really appreciate nature more. Because I mean, coming out to the parks is one of my favorite things I love doing.
So what are the things that you're looking for to know when they're going to bloom?
Basically, I've broken it up into 6 different stages. And so every time I come to the park, I sort of already have a rough idea when the stages will usually start. But also that mixed in with the weather forecast and seeing when, how the weather will be from week to week, that can greatly affect how the trees progress and how the buds develop. It is extremely sensitive, but it's also one of the things you appreciate, just that how sensitive nature actually is.
Mm-hmm. So, knowing all that, when you look around here today, where do you think we're at?
We're very close. All the buds are showing their florets, so then each floret will actually become a blossom, and so they're all starting to come out of their buds. Some trees a little bit further ahead than others, which I call stage 5, which is the one stage before becoming an actual blossom. But definitely all the trees are well into stage 4. So we might start to see a few open up over this weekend, but then we'll start going into next week and into Mother Day's weekend. Then we should start seeing the peak bloom.
So this is very exciting this weekend on Our Toronto. We took the whole show on the road to Hyde Park. We look at how sakura trees first came to Ontario way back in the 50s as a gift from Japan, and how they continue to inspire artists and even chefs in Toronto today. Victoria was here and you're talking about 20-degree weather.
Yes. Is Toronto going to get 20-degree weather? It's not looking like it this week, at least. I didn't want to get you too excited there. Okay. Not yet, but other places have seen 20-degree weather. Places like Brantford has already got up to 26 degrees. Windsor got up to 28.5, which was one of the highest recorded temperatures just this year. So the latest time that we have seen a 20-degree temperature was May 19th, 1978. Now, I'm hoping we can see a 20-degree temperature before that. I really don't want to break this record anytime soon, but this week's not looking like it, and that's just because we have an abundance of cloud cover. Really not much sunlight the next couple of days. Thursday is going to be the day. If you do want to enjoy the sun, that would be the time to get out. And remember, those UV rays right now are quite strong, so wear some UV protection if you do plan to go outside. For your Monday, 16 degrees. We could see some spotty showers here and there, and also the Leafs are starting their playoff run then, so it's a good time to cheer them on for your Monday. Tuesday, down to 13 degrees, around the seasonal range. 14 is our seasonal in Toronto, so we're just hovering around that mark. Windsor and London also 15. As we head deeper into your work week now, London 16, Kincardine 6 degrees, Hamilton 15, and 14 degrees in Toronto. Yes, we could see some showers there as well. It's just a typical springtime condition. By Thursday, 11 degrees. So we're in a stagnant range this week now.
Okay, thanks so much, Victoria. We'll see you again tomorrow. That's our show for tonight. We'll see you again soon.